What's really great about the work that we do and the training that we do is a lot of times we're engaged not just with these students or these learners when they're in one of our events, like our live 2-day summit event, but many of them work for client organizations that we have a relationship long time for long term. So we're able to really follow up with them to see, okay, they went to this training. What did they do with it? Are they putting it into practice? Are they getting results from it? And so that's really an important aspect of any training that you'll invest in, whether it's something you do in your personal life or a hobby or whatever, but definitely when you're being trained in something like leadership, to know that what you're learning is something that actually will make a difference in your leadership, that you can actually go back and put it into use. So I remember years ago when we were hired by an organization in the state of Arizona to train as many nurse leaders as we could over a period of a couple years in our leadership practices. And the reason they chose Capstone Leadership Solutions to do that, I remember the conversation, the initial conversations with the association when they said, why is it when people attend a Capstone Leadership Summit that when those leaders come back to work, they actually start putting into use what they learned at the summit? And I remember Jane and I kind of looked at each other like, isn't that what's supposed to happen, right? Like that just seems like such a basic, expectation, is that if somebody invests time and money to attend a training, that it's going to be useful. And so it still kind of joggles my mind a little bit to think that that isn't what would happen in follow up to a training event. So some of you may know this, but it may be unfamiliar to some of you. There's actually ways that it can be measured. There's different ways to evaluate training events to know whether or not they make a positive impact. Actually, there's a model called the Kirkpatrick model. I think it's a really simple, but really, like it really makes sense to think about when we evaluate training, that there's like four levels that we evaluate the training. The first one in the Kirkpatrick model is what's the reaction of the learner. So that's that initial in the moment reaction. So if they attend an online course or a webinar, or they attend, a conference session, a breakout session, or keynote session, or whatever, and they're evaluating their reaction to it. So whether they found it engaging, whether they found it, interesting or relevant. So it's that initial kind of reaction to the training. So that's the very basic first level. Then the next is, was it presented in a way that they could actually learn? So were they actually equipped with the knowledge? Did they actually grasp the knowledge, right? So how did they react? And then did they truly get equipped with some knowledge or some skills or information that they didn't have before? So those are the most basic expectations. And to be quite honest, a lot of programs fall short there, is that that's what they're shooting for, is that initial great reaction and trying to do their best to equip and transfer knowledge. But really that top level, the next two levels of evaluation, is really the most important. And truly, without knowing it, because Jane and I as clinicians and nurses and leaders, we weren't schooled and educated in being, trainers or organization development people, and that's not our original background. We have lots of experience in it now, of course, but intuitively, we just knew that when you deliver training, that the real purpose of it, the real intent, the outcome that you're trying to achieve is to change behavior and create impact, right? Or results. So all of the training that we participate in and we deliver and we develop is really with these top two levels of evaluation in mind, which is, are we changing behavior? So that takes equipping and inspiring, right? And then also, what are the results? So they have to be able to change their behaviors, do it in the new, better way because of how they were equipped and inspired during the training, how they were taught, and how they were coached to be able to change their behavior and get those results. So those are the top two levels of really how to evaluate the impact of and the investment and the return on investment for any training, whether that's for you individually or if you're bringing training to your entire organization. So, one thing that I mentioned earlier is that we're with organizations, some of them a very long time. 80 to 90% of our work is working side by side with organizations as their chief strategists, trainers, and coaches to transform their organization in big ways and multifaceted ways, improving the employee and patient experience and business outcomes, solutions in the hands of employees, solutions in the hands of leaders. This is a lot of stuff, right? And training is part of that. It's not the only piece of that, but training is a big part of the plan, do, study, adjust. A lot of the doing in that heavy lift of transformation is training. And truly, if it's going to be training that transforms, it has to get that level of impact of behavior and results. And one of our very first clients that we worked with, a rural hospital in Michigan, what was so cool when we started helping them in training their leaders, one of the great results we were able to see, because not only did the leaders react to the training well, did they learn something, but they started to change their behaviors, and that led to results. One of those results, there were many, but one of those results that I remember that was so fascinating was that in those first 2 years on their employee engagement survey, there were 20 questions specifically where employees had to give their feedback related to their specific supervisor or leader. And those results went up, all 20 of them went up just amazing in the first year. And the next year, they went up even further. Like it was just unbelievable that all 20 of those went up 2 years in a row and by a lot, right? And so that's what I mean by results, right? And those results did not just happen, right? So the training, they reacted well to the training, they learned something, but beyond that, they changed their behavior, they started leading in new, better, more impactful ways, and because of that, there was results. And so that's what you're looking for when you invest in personal development for yourself, leadership development for yourself if you're a leader, and also if you're a senior leader in an organization like I was, and you're part of the decision making group as to how do we train our leaders, how do we train our employees, how do we evaluate whether we get a return on investment for that, really you need to be focused with the end in mind. What are those results we want to see? What is the behavior change we need to get that result? And then what kind of training do we need to deliver that they'll react to, that they'll learn from, they'll change their behavior from, and we'll get that results. So that is really the nuts and bolts of it. And that is kind of the answer to the question is, is there really a return on investment for training?